The road unspooled ahead of them like a grey ribbon, cracked and half swallowed by weeds. Route 39 wasn't on most maps anymore, but that was exactly what Emma wanted: forgotten places. She leaned out the passenger window, holding her camera toward the horizon. The footage shimmered in the late afternoon light, the sky heavy with heat and distance. Dylan drove one-handed, humming to the song on the radio, the other hand tapping the steering wheel in time. He'd done most of the planning for the trip. The back roads, the motels, the abandoned diners he thought would make good content for their channel. Emma had just brought the camera and her uneasy excitement. They had left Chicago 2 days ago. The plan was to reach the Pacific within a week, documenting the quiet in-between towns, the ones no one stopped in anymore. But the deeper they went, the more the highway seemed to stretch and warp. Gas stations were rare. Cell service flickered like a dying light. "Still filming?" Dylan asked, glancing over. "Yeah, trying to catch the light before it dies," she said. "You always say that like it's a person." "Maybe it is," she murmured. He laughed softly, the kind of easy, meaningless laugh that felt like home, but something about it didn't sit right with her. Dylan had been quieter this trip, less reactive, his jokes falling flat like he was only pretending to be himself. They passed a small sign that read Route 39, Scenic Detour. The paint had peeled until the numbers were barely visible. "Scenic, huh?" Dylan said. "Looks like we're driving into nowhere." "That's the point," Emma replied, turning the camera toward the road. "Nowhere always has a story." A mile later they saw the hitchhiker. He was standing just beyond a bend, wearing a grey backpack and a faded jacket despite the heat. His thumb was out, his face tilted down. Emma zoomed in with the camera, instinctively without thinking, capturing his stillness, the way he seemed detached from the world. "Let's stop," she said. Dylan frowned. "No way. We don't pick up strangers out here. It's just for a few miles. Look at him, he's probably been out here for hours." "He'll mess with the vibe," Dylan muttered. But he slowed down anyway. When they pulled over, the man didn't move at first. Then he approached, slow and deliberate. Emma noticed his eyes, pale grey, almost colourless. He looked older up close, maybe mid-30s, though his face had that ageless exhaustion people get when they've been moving for too long. "Where you headed?" Dylan asked. "West," the man said. "Same as you." His voice was calm, quiet, and difficult to read. Emma smiled politely. "We can take you as far as Ridgeview." "That'll do." He climbed into the back seat, setting his backpack on the floor between his feet. Emma caught his reflection in the side mirror. He wasn't looking out the window, just watching the road ahead, lips slightly parted, as if following an invisible map. The car filled with silence. Even the radio had lost its signal. After a while, Dylan asked, "So, what's in Ridgeview?" The man didn't answer right away. Then, "I used to live near there." Emma turned the camera toward him, but he shifted his face just out of frame. The road narrowed. The sun sank lower, the sky bleeding into shades of rust and grey. In the camera's display, everything looked slightly distorted. The edges of the road blurred, the lines bending. "Battery's dying," Emma murmured, switching it off. When she looked up, the hitchhiker's gaze was fixed on her reflection in the window. Not directly at her, but through her, like he was looking at something just beyond. For a moment, she thought he smiled. But when she blinked, his face was completely still. The last of the sunlight died behind the hills, and the temperature dropped fast. Emma had stopped filming. The road was too dark, the camera struggling to focus. Dylan drove slower, the headlights carving narrow tunnels through the fog that had started to gather on the asphalt. The hitchhiker hadn't said a word in over an hour. He sat motionless in the back seat, his hands clasped loosely on his backpack. The silence pressed against the windows. "You sure Ridgeview's on this route?" Emma asked, checking her phone. "No service again." "GPS says it's 20 miles ahead," Dylan replied. "Or said, before it lost signal too. Maybe we missed the turn." "No, there's only one road." The car rattled over a pothole. The noise broke the stillness, sharp and metallic. The hitchhiker finally spoke, his voice calm but low. "You should slow down around mile marker 83. The bridge there isn't safe." Dylan glanced at him in the mirror. "You been through here recently?" The man didn't answer. Emma turned, trying to read his face, but the faint light from the dashboard only caught part of it. One cheek illuminated, one lost to shadow. "How do you know that?" she asked. "People drive too fast," he said. "That's all." A few minutes later, a wooden sign appeared in the beams of the headlights. "Ridgeview, 5 miles. "See?" Dylan said, forcing a laugh. "Told you it was real." Details. But when they reached the town limits, the road simply ended. The asphalt broke into gravel, then dirt. The headlights fell on an empty stretch of ground where a main street should have been. Only collapsed structures, rooftops swallowed by vines, a rusted gas pump half buried in weeds, no lights, no sound. "This can't be Ridgeview," Emma whispered. The hitchhiker looked out the window, eyes reflecting the glow of the dashboard. "It was," he said. "What do you mean was?" Dylan asked. The man didn't reply. He just reached for the door handle. "Hey!" Dylan said sharply. "Where are you going?" "Just stretching my legs." He stepped out, closing the door gently behind him. His silhouette disappeared into the darkness. Emma's chest tightened. "This is messed up, Dylan. Let's just leave." He exhaled, rubbing his eyes. "We can't just leave him in the middle of nowhere." "Why not? He's not our responsibility." But Dylan was already getting out. Emma stayed in the car, clutching the camera. She pressed the record button instinctively, the red light blinking in the dark. The lens caught fragments, the fog swirling around the headlights, Dylan's shape walking toward the ruins, a flash of movement between the shadows. "Dylan," she called. No answer. Something shifted in the fog. A sound, soft, almost like whispering. She leaned forward, focusing the lens, trying to zoom in. For a moment, she saw them both. Dylan standing still and the hitchhiker facing him. Neither moved. Then Dylan turned suddenly toward the camera, his expression unreadable. "Turn it off," he said. His voice was calm. Too calm. Emma hesitated, then lowered the camera. When Dylan got back in, the hitchhiker wasn't with him. "Where is he?" she asked. "He's not coming," Dylan said. "Said he'd find another ride." She didn't ask anything else. The tone in his voice told her not to. They drove on, headlights slicing through the mist until the ruins vanished behind them. But in the rearview mirror, Emma could have sworn she saw a small light flicker, like a flashlight moving slowly through the fog. The morning was colorless, pale light filtering through motel curtains that hadn't been washed in years. Emma sat on the edge of the bed with her camera on her lap, its battery recharged, her fingers trembling slightly as she flipped through last night's recordings. Dylan was in the shower, humming under his breath, the sound muffled by the thin walls. He'd woken up unusually calm, as if the eerie silence of Ridgeview had never happened. But Emma couldn't shake the image of the hitchhiker disappearing into the fog, or the flat, unreadable tone in Dylan's voice afterward. She hit play. The screen showed shaky footage of the car slowing down, the fog thickening, and Dylan stepping out. The hitchhiker's silhouette followed. Their figures moved into the mist, faint outlines against a pale horizon. Then the sound dropped, not faded, but cut like a clean slice in the audio. Emma frowned. She tried to rewind, then zoomed in on the frame where Dylan and the hitchhiker stood face to face. Something was wrong. The hitchhiker's mouth was moving, but no sound came out. And when Dylan turned toward the camera, his lips moved too. Yet there was no voice, only static. She paused the video. In the still frame, just behind Dylan's shoulder, there was something faintly visible. Another shape, blurred, almost human. "Dylan," she called softly. The shower stopped. After a moment he answered, "Yeah, you said he just walked away." "Who?" "The hitchhiker. He came out, towel over his shoulders, hair damp." "Yeah, why?" She turned the screen toward him. "Then what is that?" Dylan leaned in, squinting. "Probably a reflection." "There was no light, no car behind us, and this isn't fog. It's moving." He shrugged. "It's compression. Low light messes with pixels. You know that." His casual tone irritated her. "Dylan, I know what low light looks like. This isn't that." He exhaled, then smiled faintly. "You're overanalyzing again. It's what you do. Because something's not right." "Emma." His voice softened, almost gentle. "Let it go. We'll edit around it." But she couldn't. After Dylan went out to get coffee, Emma loaded the files onto her laptop. Each video from the night before had the same glitch, missing audio, abrupt cuts, distorted visuals. The timestamps didn't line up. One clip jumped backward by 15 minutes, though she hadn't touched the camera. Then she found a file she didn't remember recording. It was labeled 0039.mp4. Her stomach dropped. They had never filmed anything under that number. She hesitated, then opened it. The footage showed the inside of the car, filmed from the back seat. The camera must have been placed behind her headrest, but she hadn't done that. And Dylan was driving. In the reflection of the windshield, she could see herself in the passenger seat, half asleep, her head leaning against the window. The timestamp read 3:11 a.m. The camera panned slightly, focusing on Dylan's hands gripping the steering wheel. Too tight, knuckles pale. Then slowly, the frame shifted toward the passenger seat, toward her. Emma's breath caught. In the corner of the image, just outside the passenger window, a man's face was visible in the glass, pressed against it, eyes open, unmoving. She slammed the laptop shut. A moment later, she heard Dylan's footsteps returning outside the door. Her pulse spiked. He entered with 2 coffees, smiling. "They didn't have oat milk. Hope that's fine." Emma nodded mechanically. As he handed her the cup, she noticed something under his sleeve, a dark smear, like dried mud, or something thicker. She wanted to ask what it was, but the words wouldn't come. Outside, the highway shimmered under the morning sun, long and empty. Route 39 stretched endlessly ahead, waiting. The sun had climbed higher, but the air still held the chill of the night fog. Emma sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel, though she wasn't driving. Dylan had insisted on taking the first stretch, muttering that she needed rest. She hadn't argued. Sleep felt impossible. She couldn't stop thinking about the footage, the hitchhiker, the glitches, the figure outside the window. Something about the way Dylan had acted after returning from the ruins didn't sit right. He had been calm, almost rehearsed, as if he were following a script she didn't know existed. By mid-morning, the road became a thin grey line cutting through endless fields. Emma's phone briefly flickered to life, and she checked the GPS. Ridgeview was still miles behind, yet she couldn't shake the feeling they'd already been there, longer than the timestamp suggested. "I'm going to take a break," she said, pointing to a narrow gravel turnout surrounded by dense trees. Dylan nodded, silent, eyes forward. She stepped out, her boots crunching on the gravel, and turned back toward the car. Something glinted on the asphalt, a small, black object half buried. She bent down and picked it up. Her breath caught. It was a memory card, not from her camera, but from the dash cam she didn't remember installing. Hands shaking, she slid it into her laptop. The files were named sequentially, 00001 through 00050. The first file showed the road ahead, entirely normal. Then starting at 00022, the footage changed. The hitchhiker was inside the car, though Dylan was driving. Emma's reflection showed her tense, staring forward, and the timestamp was hours earlier than when she remembered leaving the motel. Each file after that captured moments she didn't live through. Her own reactions, Dylan's expressions, all precise and controlled. At file 00039, the same one from last night, the image zoomed on the hitchhiker pressed against the glass. But now she noticed something she hadn't before. His face was almost featureless, pale as the fog outside, and in the reflection, Dylan's eyes weren't his own. They were empty, distant, and aware in a way that felt impossible. Emma's stomach twisted. She realized the hitchhiker wasn't a stranger. He was a trigger, a mirror of something in Dylan she hadn't wanted to see. All the subtle unease, the flat tone, the glitches. It was him. Dylan approached from behind, voice low and calm. "I wanted to show you the road as it really is," he said. "Not the towns, not the scenery, the people who vanish along it and what they leave behind." "What are you saying?" Emma whispered, backing away. "You've seen it," he said, glancing at the laptop. "Route 39 doesn't forget, and neither do I." Her mind raced. The footage, the missing times, the figure outside the window, it all pointed to one terrifying truth. Dylan had orchestrated the entire encounter, manipulating the journey to capture moments that weren't meant for her eyes, bending reality in small, terrifying ways until the line between what she'd seen and what happened was gone. Emma turned and ran to the car, fumbling with the keys. Dylan followed, calm, almost casual. She locked the doors, started the engine, and drove. Route 39 stretched endlessly ahead, the scenery repeating, folding in on itself. She didn't look back, but in the rearview mirror, she saw the hitchhiker walking along the roadside, motionless, watching her. For a fleeting second, his featureless face seemed to smile. Then he vanished. Emma kept driving, the miles passing like hours, Route 39 never ending, and the recordings running in her mind. Proof that some trips don't just end. They follow you quietly, altering how you see reality.